The blood on his chest was black in the moonlight, and Lily Grayson's hands shook as she pressed the cloth against the gash that ran from his collarbone to his ribs. "Press harder," the Vampire King commanded, his voice rough with pain but still carrying an authority that made her spine stiffen. His eyes pale silver in the darkness of his chambers, fixed on her face with an intensity that stole her breath. "I will not bleed out from such a minor wound, but I would prefer not to ruin the carpet further." Minor wound. Lily wanted to laugh at the absurdity of it, but fear kept her silent. The cut was deep enough that she could see muscle and something darker beneath, and the blood kept flowing despite her pressure. She'd been working as a nurse at St. Catherine's Hospital for 3 years, but nothing in her training had prepared her for this, for being dragged from her apartment at midnight by 2 pale-haired guards and brought to a hidden palace beneath the city to tend to their wounded king. "I need supplies," she managed, her voice steadier than she felt. "Proper medical equipment. I can't just—" His hand shot out and caught her wrist, and Lily gasped. His grip was gentle but immovable, his skin cool against hers, and she felt something electric pass between them at the contact. The Vampire King's eyes widened fractionally, and for a moment something like surprise flickered across his regal features. "You felt that," he said. Not a question, but a statement of fact. Lily tried to pull away, but his fingers tightened just enough to keep her there. "I don't know what you're talking about. Please let me go so I can help you properly." He released her wrist slowly, his gaze never leaving her face. "Forgive me. The pain makes me forget myself." He gestured to a cabinet across the room with his uninjured arm. "You will find what you need there. My physician keeps this chamber well stocked for such occasions." She hurried to the cabinet, grateful for the distance, and found it filled with medical supplies that looked both ancient and modern, glass bottles of clear liquid that might have been alcohol or something stranger, surgical thread that gleamed silver in the lamplight, and bandages of silk rather than cotton. Her hands were still trembling as she gathered what she needed and returned to his side. The Vampire King, she still didn't know his name, had been carried into this chamber an hour ago. His white shirt soaked through with blood, his normally pristine appearance marred by dirt and ash. The guards who'd brought Lily here had explained nothing except that she was needed immediately, that she'd been chosen specifically, though they wouldn't say why. She'd seen the desperation in their eyes and known that refusing wasn't an option. Now, as she cleaned the wound with careful hands, she studied him more closely. His hair was pure white, falling past his shoulders in waves that caught the light like spun silver. His skin was alabaster pale, unmarred except for the terrible gash across his chest and a few smaller cuts on his arms. His features were sharp and aristocratic, high cheekbones, a strong jaw, lips that would have been sensual if they weren't pressed into a tight line of pain. He looked young, perhaps 30, but something in his eyes spoke of centuries. "What happened to you?" she asked quietly as she began to stitch the wound closed. The thread she was using was indeed silver, and she wondered if that had some significance in vampire healing. "A rival faction," he said, his voice strained but controlled. "They have been growing bold lately, challenging my rule. Tonight they sent assassins with weapons blessed by witchfire. Such wounds are difficult for my kind to heal naturally." Lily's hands paused. "Witchfire? A flame that burns the supernatural. It prevents our regenerative abilities from functioning properly." His eyes found hers again, and she saw something softer in them now. "Which is why I required your assistance. A human healer untainted by magic, whose touch can cleanse what vampire healing cannot." "I'm just a nurse," Lily protested. "I'm not special. Surely you have. You are more than you know, Lily Grayson." The way he said her name sent a shiver down her spine. "But we will discuss that later. For now, continue your work. You have a steady hand and a gentle touch. It is pleasant." She didn't know how to respond to that, so she focused on her task. The wound was long but not impossibly deep, and as she stitched, she fell into the familiar rhythm of her training. The Vampire King remained silent, watching her work with an expression she couldn't quite read. Outside the chamber, she could hear movement, footsteps in corridors, voices speaking in languages she didn't recognize. "Where are we?" she asked as she tied off the last stitch. "I've lived in this city my whole life, and I never knew there was a place like this beneath it." "We are in the heart of the Nocturne Palace," he said. "It has existed beneath your city for over 500 years, hidden from human eyes by ancient magic and careful planning. This is where the Vampire Court of the Eastern Territories resides, and where I rule from." Lily began bandaging the wound, wrapping the silk carefully around his broad chest. Being this close to him, touching his bare skin felt strangely intimate. She tried to maintain professional distance, but she could feel his gaze on her face, could hear the slow, steady rhythm of his breathing. "You still haven't told me your name," she said. A slight curve touched his lips, not quite a smile, but close. I am called Valerian Draekor, though my full titles are numerous and tedious. You may call me Valerian if you wish. That's very generous of you, Your Majesty, Lily said, unable to keep a hint of sarcasm from her voice. Fear was giving way to exhaustion and a strange sort of boldness. Kidnapping me in the middle of the night and then graciously allowing me to use your first name. To her surprise, Valerian laughed, a rich, warm sound that transformed his austere face into something breathtaking. You have spirit. I was told you would, but I confess I doubted the reports. Most humans brought before me are too terrified to speak, let alone challenge me. Maybe I'm just too tired to be properly afraid, Lily said, securing the bandage with careful fingers. There, that should hold, but you need to keep it clean and dry. If you were human, I'd tell you to avoid strenuous activity for at least a week, but I'm guessing vampire healing works differently even with the witchfire complication. You guessed correctly, I will be fully healed within 3 days, perhaps 4. Valerian sat up slowly, testing the bandage. You have done excellent work. I am in your debt. Then let me go home, Lily said immediately. I have a shift at the hospital in 6 hours and I need to sleep. Something flickered in Valerian's eyes, regret perhaps, or something darker. I cannot do that. Not yet. Fear spiked through her again. What do you mean you can't? You said I was here to heal you and I have. Our business is done. The assassins who attacked me tonight were after more than my death, Valerian said, his voice grave. They were seeking information about a certain human woman who has been identified as having a rare blood type, one that is precious to vampire kind, but also marks her as a target for those who would use her against me. Lily's blood went cold. What are you saying? I am saying that you, Lily Grayson, have been under my protection for the past 6 months without your knowledge. Your blood carries a unique resonance, one that appears only once every few centuries. It makes you valuable beyond measure, and it also makes you incredibly dangerous to those who would see me overthrown. Valerian stood, moving with fluid grace despite his injury. The fact that the assassins came tonight, the same night I had planned to finally approach you and explain the situation, is no coincidence. They know about you, which means you are no longer safe in the human world above. This is insane, Lily whispered, backing away from him. I'm nobody, I'm just a nurse. My blood is O-negative, which is rare but not that rare, and I don't. Your blood is not merely O-negative, Valerian interrupted gently. It carries the mark of the Luminara line, an ancient bloodline thought lost centuries ago. Luminara blood can heal vampires afflicted with curses, can break magical bonds, and in the right hands, can be used to create weapons of terrible power. You are descended from a line of humans who once served as healers and companions to vampire nobility, and that heritage has awakened in you. Lily's legs felt weak, and she sank into a chair. You're telling me I'm some kind of magical blood bank? That's why you brought me here? I brought you here to save your life, Valerian said, and there was real emotion in his voice now. And yes, because I needed your healing touch for this wound, but mostly because keeping you in the human world was becoming impossible. The Royal Volksjustition has spies everywhere, and they will stop at nothing to acquire you. If they succeed, they will use your blood to create weapons that could destroy not just me but the entire established order of vampire society. Thousands would die in the chaos that followed. So what am I supposed to do? Lily asked, hating how small her voice sounded. Hide down here forever? Valerian moved closer, and despite everything, she didn't flinch away. There was something in his presence that felt safe, even as her mind screamed at the impossibility of this entire situation. I would like you to stay here, under my protection, until we can neutralize the threat against you. It may take weeks or months, but I swear to you that you will be kept safe. You will have your own chambers, freedom to move throughout the palace, and anything you need will be provided. Except my freedom to leave, Lily said bitterly. Except that, Valerian agreed. I am sorry, I truly am. But the alternative is your death or capture, and I find I cannot accept either outcome. There was something in the way he said it, something personal and raw, that made Lily look up at him sharply. You don't even know me, no, he said softly. But I would very much like to. Before she could respond, the chamber doors burst open, and one of the guards from earlier rushed in. My king, forgive the intrusion, but we have reports of another attack on the eastern perimeter. They're using daylight weapons trying to breach the outer wards. Valerian's expression hardened instantly, all trace of softness vanishing. How many? At least a dozen, possibly more. Lord Cassian is organizing the defense, but they're pressing hard. I will be there shortly. Valerian turned to Lily and his voice became gentle again. Seraphine will escort you to your chambers. You will be safe there. The inner palace is warded against all intrusion. I must go, but we will speak more when I return. You just got stabbed. Lily protested, her medical training overriding her fear. You can't go fight more assassins, you need to rest and heal. Something warm flickered in Valerian's eyes. Your concern is noted and appreciated, but I am still more than capable of defending my kingdom. Rest, Lily. You have had a traumatic night, and tomorrow we will discuss everything properly. A female vampire appeared in the doorway, tall and elegant with the same white hair and pale skin as Valerian, though her eyes were a striking violet. Come, Miss Grayson, she said in a melodious voice. I will show you to your rooms. The king is needed elsewhere, but you will be well cared for here. Lily wanted to argue, wanted to demand more answers, but exhaustion was crashing over her like a wave. She let Seraphine lead her from Valerian's chambers, through winding corridors of stone and marble that seemed to blend medieval architecture with modern luxury. The palace was beautiful in an otherworldly way, crystal chandeliers casting rainbow light across walls, decorated with tapestries and paintings that looked genuinely ancient. Her chambers, when they finally reached them, were more luxurious than any hotel room she'd ever seen. A massive four-poster bed dominated one wall, draped in silk the color of midnight. There was a sitting area with plush furniture, a bathroom that looked like it belonged in a spa, and tall windows that showed only darkness beyond. She realized they must open onto some underground cavern or magical illusion. Everything you need should be here, Seraphine said kindly. Clothing in the wardrobe, toiletries in the bath. If you require anything else, ring the bell and someone will attend to you. You are a guest here, Miss Grayson, not a prisoner, whatever you may currently feel. Can I leave whenever I want? Lily asked. Seraphine's smile was sympathetic but firm. Not until the danger has passed. But within these walls you are free to go where you please, speak to whom you wish, and live as comfortably as we can make you. The king has given strict orders that you are to be treated with the utmost respect and care. After Seraphine left, Lily collapsed onto the bed, her mind spinning. 24 hours ago, her biggest concern had been whether she'd be assigned to the emergency room or the cardiac ward for her next shift. Now she was apparently descended from some magical bloodline, trapped in an underground vampire palace, and under the protection of a vampire king who looked at her with eyes that made her feel things she definitely shouldn't be feeling. She thought about Valerian going back into battle with a freshly stitched wound, and worry knotted in her stomach. Which was ridiculous. He was a centuries-old vampire king. He didn't need her concern. And yet she couldn't stop thinking about the moment he'd caught her wrist, the electric jolt that had passed between them, the way his expression had softened when he looked at her. This was a disaster. This was dangerous. This was absolutely insane. But as Lily finally fell into an exhausted sleep, her last thought was wondering if Valerian would be all right. She woke to daylight, or what passed for it, in the underground palace. The windows now showed a soft golden glow that mimicked sunrise, though she suspected it was magical rather than natural. Someone had left a tray of breakfast on the table in her sitting area: fresh fruit, pastries, coffee that smelled divine, and a small vase with a single white rose. There was a note beside the rose in elegant script. The attack was repelled with minimal casualties. I hope you slept well. You need not stay confined to your chambers. Explore as you wish. I will call for you this evening if you are amenable. Villy read the note 3 times, her heart doing complicated things in her chest. She told herself it was just relief that he was all right, that the palace was safe. It had nothing to do with the memory of his hand on her wrist or the warmth in his voice when he'd said her name. After eating and showering, she found the wardrobe filled with clothes in her exact size: dresses, pants, shirts, even pajamas, all of high quality and perfect taste. It should have been creepy that they knew her measurements, but given everything else that had happened, it barely registered. She chose simple black pants and a soft gray sweater, determined to explore this strange place she was apparently trapped in. The corridors were less intimidating in the magical daylight. She passed other vampires, all with that distinctive white hair and pale skin, moving with preternatural grace. Some nodded to her politely. Others watched her with undisguised curiosity. None seemed hostile, which was a relief. She found herself in what appeared to be a library, a massive room with shelves that stretched up 3 stories, filled with more books than she'd ever seen in one place. The smell of old paper and leather was comforting, familiar. The king's collection is quite impressive, is it not? Lily turned to find an older-looking vampire, though she was learning that appearances meant nothing with immortals, smiling at her from a reading chair. He had the same white hair as the others, but his eyes were a deep amber, and his face carried lines that suggested he'd been turned later in life than most. It's incredible, Lily said honestly. I've never seen anything like it. I am Lord Cassian, he said, standing and offering a small bow. I serve as the king's chief advisor and commander of his guard. You must be Miss Grayson. Your arrival has caused quite a stir in the court. I didn't exactly plan it, Lily said dryly. Being kidnapped tends to disrupt one's schedule. Cassian's laugh was warm and genuine. I like you already. Come, sit. I imagine you have many questions, and I have been instructed to answer what I can. Lily settled into a chair across from him, grateful for someone willing to actually explain things. What Valerian told me last night about my blood, the Luminara line, is it really true? Every word, Cassian confirmed. The Luminara were a noble human family who formed a sacred bond with vampire kind nearly 1,000 years ago. They served as healers, diplomats, and companions to our kings and queens. Their blood carried unique properties that made them invaluable. But the line was thought to have died out during the Great Purges of the 17th century, when witch hunters targeted anyone associated with vampires. But obviously it didn't die out, Lily said, or I wouldn't be here, indeed. We suspect that some members of the family went into hiding, concealed their heritage, and blended into normal human society. Your bloodline likely passed down through the generations without anyone knowing what it meant, until it manifested in you. How did Valerian even find me? Cassian's expression grew more serious. 6 months ago, you treated a vampire in your hospital emergency room. Do you remember? A young woman with severe burns who refused to let anyone but you touch her? Lily's eyes widened. Elena. She said she'd been in a fire, but her wounds were strange. They weren't healing the way burn wounds should. I thought she might have some kind of immune disorder. She disappeared from the hospital before we could run proper tests. Elena is a member of our court, Cassian explained. She had been caught in a witch-fire trap and was dying. In desperation, she went to the nearest hospital, hoping human medicine might help where vampire healing could not. When you touched her, when you treated her wounds, they began to heal. Not completely, but enough to save her life. She reported back to us and we began investigating you. So you've been spying on me for 6 months, Lily said, not sure whether to be angry or frightened. We have been protecting you, Cassian corrected gently. Once we confirmed what you were, we knew others would eventually discover it too. The king assigned guards to watch over you in secret, to keep you safe until we could determine the best way to approach you. He wanted to be certain of your bloodline before revealing the truth and disrupting your life. Well, my life is definitely disrupted now, Lily muttered. What happens if this rival faction gets hold of me? What would they actually do? Cassian's face darkened. They would drain your blood to create weapons. The process would kill you slowly and painfully over the course of weeks. Your blood would be used to forge blades that could kill even the eldest vampires, to break the ancient wards that protect places like this palace, and to create poisons that would devastate our kind. With such weapons, they could overthrow the established order and plunge vampire society into civil war. Lily felt sick, and there's no way to just make my blood normal, to remove whatever makes it special. Not that we know of. The Luminara gift is written into your very essence. It cannot be removed without killing you. They sat in silence for a moment. Finally, Lily asked the question that had been nagging at her since last night. Why does Valerian care so much? I mean, I understand politically why I'm valuable, but the way he talks about protecting me, it seems personal. Cassian studied her carefully, as if weighing his words. The king has ruled for 300 years. In all that time, I have never seen him take such a personal interest in anyone's welfare. When we discovered what you were, he could have simply had you brought here and kept under guard. Instead, he spent months researching your life, ensuring you were happy and safe in your human world, reluctant to tear you away from everything you knew. Even last night, when he was gravely wounded, his first concern was for your safety and comfort. That doesn't answer my question, Lily said softly. No, Cassian agreed, it does not. Perhaps that is a question you should ask him yourself. Before Lily could respond, Seraphine appeared in the library doorway. Miss Grayson, the king requests your presence in the garden courtyard if you are willing. Lily's heart jumped. He's supposed to be resting. Seraphine's smile was knowing. The king does not rest when there are matters that require his attention. He has been asking for you since he woke 2 hours ago. Lily followed Seraphine through more winding corridors until they emerged into a courtyard that took her breath away. It was enormous, open to what must have been a massive cavern above, with a ceiling so high she could barely see it. The space was filled with lush gardens, trees, and flowers that somehow thrived without natural sunlight. Fountains that sparkled with crystal-clear water, and paths of white stone that wound through it all like ribbons. Valerian stood beside a fountain, his back to her, dressed in black clothing that emphasized his tall, lean frame. When he turned at her approach, She was struck again by how beautiful he was, otherworldly and dangerous and magnetic all at once. "You came," he said, and there was genuine pleasure in his voice. "I was not certain you would wish to see me again so soon." "I wanted to check on your wound," Lily said, keeping her voice professional even as her pulse raced. "You shouldn't have gone into battle last night." "I am fully healed," Valerian assured her, and when he pulled aside the collar of his shirt, she saw that the terrible gash was now only a thin red line already fading to white. "Your care and the removal of the witchfire allowed my natural healing to take over. By tomorrow, there will be no trace of it." "That's impossible," Lily breathed. "Yesterday you were cut to the bone. Vampire healing is quite remarkable when not impeded by cursed weapons." He let the collar fall back into place. "Walk with me? There is much we should discuss. And I find the garden conducive to difficult conversations." They walked side by side along the white stone paths, and Lily found herself hyper-aware of his presence the way he moved. The subtle scent of something like night air and winter frost that clung to him, the careful distance he maintained as if afraid to startle her. "I owe you an apology," Valerian said after a few moments of silence. "Last night in my pain and urgency I was not as gentle with you as I should have been. You were frightened and confused, and I added to that fear with my blunt explanations and impossible demands. It was poorly done." "You were bleeding out," Lily said. "I think you can be forgiven for not having perfect manners." "Perhaps, but you deserve better. You deserve the truth delivered with care and compassion, not thrown at you like a weapon." He stopped walking and turned to face her, his silver eyes intense. "So let me be clear now, when we are both calm and I can speak properly. You are in danger, Lily Grayson, through no fault of your own. Your bloodline makes you a target for those who would use you to achieve terrible ends. I cannot allow that to happen, not just because of the political ramifications, but because the thought of you suffering such a fate is unbearable to me." "Why?" Lily whispered. "You don't know me." "I have watched over you for 6 months," Valerian said softly. "I have read reports of your kindness to your patients, your dedication to healing, your quick wit and compassionate heart. I have seen you laugh with your friends, watched you sit in the park on your days off reading novels and drinking terrible coffee. I know that you volunteer at the homeless shelter on Tuesday evenings, that you sing when you think no one is listening, and that you cry at sad movies even though you try to hide it. I know more about you than you might think, and everything I know has convinced me that you are someone worth protecting." Lily's breath caught. It should have been creepy, the idea of him watching her life unfold from a distance. But the way he spoke of it with such tenderness and careful attention made it feel less like surveillance and more like devotion. "That's still not an answer," she managed. "Lots of people are kind and worth protecting. What makes me different?" Valerian was quiet for a long moment, and when he spoke again, his voice was raw with honesty. "When I caught your wrist last night, did you feel it? That connection like lightning between us?" "Yes," Lily admitted. "That is called a resonance bond. It is extraordinarily rare. It occurs perhaps once in a millennium, when a vampire meets someone whose very soul harmonizes with their own. It means that you and I are compatible in ways that transcend the physical, that we are meant to understand each other on the deepest level." His hand lifted, hovering near her face but not quite touching. "I felt it the first time I saw you, even through the distance and wards separating us. I had hoped I was wrong, that proximity would prove it was merely my imagination. But last night when I touched you, I knew with absolute certainty. You were my resonance, Lily, my match, my equal." Lily's mind was reeling. "That's impossible. We're not even the same species." "Species matters less than you might think when it comes to matters of the soul," Valerian said gently. "Resonance bonds can form between vampire and human, vampire and witch, even vampire and fae, though such pairings are rare. What matters is the connection itself, the recognition of kindred spirits." "And what does this bond mean exactly?" Lily asked, torn between fascination and fear. "Am I supposed to just accept that we're soulmates or something?" "You are supposed to accept nothing you do not wish to," Valerian said firmly. "A resonance bond is an opportunity, not a chain. It means we have the potential for a connection deeper than most people ever experience, but it does not obligate you to pursue it. I would never force my affections on you, Lily. What I feel, what this bond suggests we could have, is meaningless if you do not reciprocate freely and willingly." "What do you feel?" The question escaped before Lily could stop it. Valerian's eyes blazed with sudden intensity. "I feel as though I have been searching for something my entire existence without knowing what it was, and I have finally found it in you. I feel protective and possessive in ways that terrify me with their strength. I feel curious about every thought in your head, every experience that shaped you, every dream you harbor for your future. I feel drawn to you like the tide to the moon, inevitable and inexorable, and I feel hope that perhaps given time, you might come to feel even a fraction of the same." Lily's heart was pounding so hard she was sure he could hear it. Everything about this was insane: the vampire palace, the magical bloodline, the revelation that she was supposedly destined for this impossibly beautiful immortal king, and yet, standing here with Valerian looking at her like she was the most precious thing in his world, she couldn't deny the pull she felt toward him. The strange rightness of his presence, the way her skin tingled with awareness whenever he was near. "I don't know what I feel," she said honestly. "This is all too much too fast. Yesterday I was a normal nurse living a normal life, and now your life has been turned upside down by forces beyond your control," Valerian finished gently. "I understand, which is why I am asking nothing of you except patience. Stay here where you are safe. Let me protect you while we deal with the threat against you. And if in time you come to trust me, perhaps even to care for me, then we can explore what this bond might mean for both of us. But if you do not, if you wish only to return to your human life once the danger has passed, then I will do everything in my power to make that possible." "You would really let me go?" Lily asked, searching his face for any sign of deception. "I would hate it," Valerian admitted. "It would be like tearing out a piece of my own soul. But yes, I would let you go. Your happiness and freedom matter more to me than my own desires." Before Lily could respond, one of the guards came running into the courtyard, his face etched with urgency. "My king, forgive the interruption, but we have captured one of the assassins from last night's attack. He is being held in the lower cells and is demanding to speak with you." Valerian's expression hardened. "I will be there shortly." He turned back to Lily, his voice softening again. "I must attend to this. Will you be all right on your own for a few hours?" "I'm not a child," Lily said, a bit more sharply than intended. "I can manage." Something that might have been amusement flickered in his eyes. "No, you are certainly not a child. Very well. Seraphine will find you when I am free again, if you are amenable to dining with me this evening. I would very much like to continue our conversation." After he left, Lily spent the rest of the day exploring the palace, trying to process everything she'd learned. She found a music room with instruments that looked both ancient and well-maintained, a training hall where vampires sparred with inhuman speed and grace, and a gallery filled with portraits of what she assumed were past vampire nobility. She kept thinking about what Valerian had said about the resonance bond, about watching her for months, about being willing to let her go if that was what she wanted. Part of her was still terrified, still wanted to run back to her normal life. But another part, a part that was growing stronger, was curious about what might happen if she stayed, about what it might mean to be connected to someone like Valerian. That evening, Seraphine arrived to escort her to dinner. She was led to a private dining room that was somehow both elegant and intimate, a table set for two beside tall windows that now showed an illusion of stars in a night sky. Valerian was already there, and he stood when she entered, his eyes warming with obvious pleasure. He'd changed into a deep blue shirt that made his pale coloring even more striking, and his white hair was pulled back from his face, revealing the strong lines of his features. "You look lovely," he said as he pulled out her chair. Lily glanced down at the simple dress she'd chosen from the wardrobe, deep green, and more formal than what she'd worn during the day, but hardly fancy. "The wardrobe in my room is very well stocked. I may have taken certain liberties when preparing your chambers," Valerian admitted as he took his seat across from her. "I wanted you to have everything you might need to feel comfortable." The meal that followed was surprisingly pleasant. Valerian was an engaging conversationalist, asking about her work as a nurse, her childhood, her interests and dreams. He listened with genuine attention to everything she said, and Lily found herself relaxing despite the strangeness of the situation. When she asked about his own past, he spoke of centuries of rule with surprising candor, the challenges of maintaining peace among vampire factions, the loneliness of immortality, the weight of responsibility that came with his crown. "Do you ever regret it?" Lily asked. "Being king sometimes," Valerian admitted. "The burden is heavy, and there are moments when I envy those with simpler lives. But I was born to this role, and I take my duties seriously. My people depend on me to keep them safe, to navigate the complex politics between vampire kind and the other supernatural nations, to maintain the delicate balance that allows us to exist alongside humanity without descending into war or chaos." That sounds exhausting. It can be, which is why resonances are considered such a gift among our kind. To have someone who truly understands you, who can share that burden and provide comfort in dark times, it is precious beyond measure. Their eyes met across the table, and Lily felt that electric connection again, stronger than before. "What happened with the assassin you captured?" she asked, needing to break the intensity of the moment. Valerian's expression darkened. He confirmed our suspicions. The rival faction they call themselves the Crimson Court have been planning this move against me for months. They know about you. They know about the Luminara bloodline, and they are determined to acquire you. The assassin claimed they have spies throughout the city above, watching all the exits from this palace, waiting for an opportunity to strike. So I really am trapped here, Lily said quietly. For now, yes, I am sorry. Valerian reached across the table, his hand stopping just short of hers. But I swear to you, I am doing everything in my power to end this threat. I have sent word to allied courts calling for reinforcements. I have my best trackers hunting the Crimson Court's leadership. This will not last forever. And if it does, what if they never stop coming after me? Then I will protect you for as long as necessary, Valerian said with absolute certainty. Even if that means forever. The way he said it, like a vow, made Lily's heart skip. She turned her hand over on the table, palm up, a silent invitation. Valerian's eyes widened slightly, and then his hand covered hers, their fingers interlacing. The contact sent warmth flooding through her, that sense of rightness she'd felt before, but stronger now, more insistent. I felt it again, she whispered. As did I. Valerian's thumb brushed across her knuckles in a gentle caress. It grows stronger each time we touch, each moment we spend together. The bond is trying to deepen, to fully form, but only if we both allow it. What would happen if it fully formed? We would be connected on a level most people cannot fathom. I would be able to sense your emotions, your well-being from across great distances. You would be able to do the same with me. Our life forces would be partially entwined, which has both benefits and dangers. If one of us were seriously injured, the other would know immediately and be able to offer strength through the bond. But it also means that if one of us dies, the other will feel that death as though it were their own. That's terrifying, Lily said. It is, Valerian agreed. It is a vulnerability that most vampires would never willingly accept. To tie yourself so completely to another person, to give them that kind of power over you, it goes against every survival instinct we possess. And yet when I think about forming that bond with you, I feel no fear, only certainty. Lily stared at their joined hands, her mind racing. This was happening too fast. She'd known him for barely 24 hours. And yet, sitting here with her hand in his, feeling the rightness of his presence, she couldn't deny what was growing between them. I need time, she said finally. I need to process all of this. The bond, the danger, everything. Of course. Valerian brought her hand to his lips and pressed a gentle kiss to her knuckles before releasing her. Take all the time you need. I am not going anywhere, and neither are you, it seems. We have time to let this unfold naturally. Over the following weeks, Lily settled into a strange new routine. Her days were spent exploring the palace, learning about vampire culture from Cassian and Seraphine, and spending increasingly long hours with Valerian. He was careful never to push, never to demand more than she was willing to give, but his attention was constant and focused. He sent her gifts, books he thought she might enjoy, flowers from the garden, a beautiful notebook with pressed leather when he learned she liked to journal. They had dinner together every evening, conversations ranging from philosophy to medicine to their favorite music. Valerian taught her about vampire history, and she taught him about modern medicine and human culture. They played chess in the library, walked through the gardens at midnight, and sat in comfortable silence reading beside each other. Lily found herself looking forward to seeing him each day, found her heart racing when he smiled at her, found herself imagining what it might be like to truly be with him. The bond was growing stronger whether she consciously allowed it or not, and she could sometimes feel faint echoes of his emotions, a warm contentment when they were together, fierce protectiveness when his guards reported potential threats, and an underlying current of longing that matched her own. She was falling in love with him. The realization hit her one evening as she was getting ready for dinner, and it should have terrified her. Instead it felt right, inevitable. Like coming home to a place she'd been searching for her whole life without knowing it. That night, when Valerian took her hand after dinner, she didn't pull away. Instead, she stepped closer, looking up into his silver eyes. The bond, she said softly. Tell me more about it. What would it really mean to let it fully form? Valerian's eyes blazed with sudden hope and carefully controlled desire. It would mean we are bound together, connected in ways both beautiful and terrifying. It would mean I could never truly hide my feelings from you, and you could never hide yours from me. It would mean trusting each other with everything we are. And what if I'm ready for that? Lily asked, her heart pounding. What if I want to try? Valerian's hand came up to cup her cheek, his touch gentle despite the intensity in his gaze. Then I would count myself the most fortunate being in existence. But Lily, you must be certain. Once formed, a resonance bond cannot be broken except by death. I would never want you to feel trapped. I don't feel trapped, Lily said, and realized it was true. I feel like I'm finally where I'm meant to be, with you. It's insane, I know. We've only known each other a few weeks. But I trust you, Valerian. I trust what this is between us. Lily, he breathed. And then his lips were on hers, soft and careful and full of restrained passion. The kiss was gentle at first, testing, asking permission. When she responded, her hands coming up to tangle in his white hair, it deepened into something more urgent. The bond blazed to life between them, fully forming in a rush of sensation that made Lily gasp against his mouth. She could feel him, his love, his desire, his absolute devotion to her. It was overwhelming and wonderful and exactly right. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, Valerian rested his forehead against hers. I can feel you, he said in wonder. Everything you're feeling, your joy, your love, it's magnificent. I can feel you too, Lily whispered. You really do love me, more than I have words to express. Valerian pulled back just enough to look into her eyes. I have existed for 3 centuries and I have never felt anything like what I feel for you. You are my resonance, my match, my heart. And if you will have me, I would like to spend the rest of your life and mine showing you just how deeply I can love. Yes, Lily said simply. Yes to all of it. They were married 3 weeks later in a ceremony that blended human and vampire traditions. Lily wore a gown of white silk that Valerian had commissioned from the finest tailors in the palace, and he wore formal robes of midnight blue trimmed with silver. The ceremony took place in the garden courtyard, with the entire vampire court in attendance as witnesses. When they exchanged vows, Lily promising to stand beside him as his equal and partner, Valerian swearing to protect and cherish her for all his days, the bond between them sang with perfect harmony. And when he kissed her to seal their union, the gathered vampires erupted in applause that echoed through the underground palace. But their happiness was short-lived. That very night, alarms rang through the palace. The Crimson Court had launched a full-scale assault, bringing with them weapons forged from stolen Luminara blood they must have acquired from some distant relative of Lily's she'd never known existed. Valerian immediately ordered Lily to the most secure chambers in the palace, surrounded by guards. Stay here, he commanded, already arming himself for battle. The wards on this room will hold against anything they can throw at us. You will be safe. I'm not hiding while you risk your life, Lily protested. I'm your wife now, your partner. Let me help. You can help by staying alive, Valerian said fiercely, gripping her shoulders. If anything happens to you, if they get their hands on you, everything we've built here will crumble. Please, my love. For me. Stay safe. Lily could feel his terror through the bond, his desperate need to keep her protected. She nodded reluctantly. Come back to me, always. He kissed her hard and then was gone, disappearing into the chaos of battle. For hours, Lily paced the secure chamber, feeling the ebb and flow of Valerian's emotions through the bond. Fear, determination, pain when he was wounded, fierce triumph when he struck down enemies. The guards outside her door reported periodically the Crimson Court had breached the outer defenses. They were in the palace corridors. They were being pushed back. They were rallying for another assault. Then, suddenly, Lily felt something new through the bond. Not from Valerian, but from somewhere else. A pull, like a string being tugged from the center of her chest, leading her towards something. She followed it instinctively, moving to the far wall of the chamber and pressing her hand against the stone. The wall shimmered and became translucent, revealing a hidden passage. Through the bond, she understood what it was: an ancient escape route, built centuries ago and keyed to respond to Luminara bloodlines. The palace itself was calling to her, offering her a way to help. Lily made her decision in an instant. She was not going to hide while people died protecting her. She was Luminara. Her blood had power, and perhaps she could use it to end this without more bloodshed. The passage led down, deep into the oldest parts of the palace. Lily emerged in a chamber that looked like it hadn't been touched in centuries, stone walls covered in carved runes, a circular altar in the center, and ancient texts scattered across tables. She knew with the certainty that came from her awakened bloodline that this was where the Luminara healers had worked their magic. This was where they had created the wards that protected places like this, where they had forged the bonds between human and vampire that had lasted for generations. And this was where she could create something that would end the threat of the Crimson Court forever. Lily cut her palm with a knife from the altar, letting her blood pool in a carved basin. She didn't know how she knew what to do. The knowledge seemed to rise from somewhere deep inside her, an ancestral memory passed down through her bloodline. She spoke words in a language she'd never learned, drew symbols in her own blood on the altar, and felt power surge through her. Above, she felt Valerian's shock and fear through the bond as he realized she was no longer in the safe room. His emotions screamed at her to stop, to get back to safety. but she pushed back reassurance and determination. Trust me, she sent through the bond. I know what I'm doing. The ritual completed with a flash of brilliant light, and Lily felt something fundamental shift in the world. The weapons the Crimson Court had forged from Luminara blood, she could feel them scattered throughout the battle above, and with a thought, she unmade them. The cursed metal shattered, the dark magic dissolved, leaving the assassins suddenly defenseless. But she didn't stop there. Lily reached out with her power, following the threads of stolen blood back to their source. She found the Crimson Court's hidden stronghold, felt the presence of the leaders who had ordered this attack, who had killed her distant relatives to harvest their blood for weapons. With her power, she marked them. Not to kill, that wasn't in her nature, but to make them visible to Valerian's forces, to strip away their protections and hiding places, leaving them vulnerable to justice. She felt the moment Valerian understood what she'd done. Through the bond, his emotions surged awe, pride, fierce love, and lingering terror at the risk she'd taken. The battle ended swiftly after that. With their weapons destroyed and their leaders exposed, the Crimson Court collapsed. When Valerian finally found her in the ancient chamber, he swept her into his arms with a force that stole her breath. "Never again," he said roughly, his face buried in her hair. "Never put yourself at risk like that again. I felt you drawing on your power, felt the danger you were in, and I nearly lost my mind." "I had to," Lily said, clinging to him just as tightly. "I couldn't let more people die for me, and I was never really in danger. The chamber protected me, and my bloodline knew what to do. I trust the power inside me, Valerian, just like I trust you." He pulled back to look at her, his eyes wet with emotion she'd never seen from him before. "You are extraordinary. You ended a war in minutes that could have dragged on for years. You saved countless lives. But you also terrified me beyond reason, and I need you to promise me that next time, if there is a next time, you will at least tell me before you do something so incredibly reckless and brave." "I promise," Lily said, and kissed him. They held each other in that ancient chamber for a long time, feeling their bond settle into something even deeper than before. They had been tested by fire and come through stronger for it. In the weeks that followed, the vampire world underwent significant changes. With the Crimson Court's leadership in custody and their faction dissolved, Valerian's rule became more secure than it had been in decades. Other vampire courts sent envoys to swear allegiance, impressed by the power of the Luminara bloodline reawakening and the strategic marriage between Valerian and Lily. Lily herself became a figure of fascination and respect. She worked with Cassian to establish new protocols for vampire-human relations, drawing on her medical knowledge and her unique position as both human and queen consort. She began training with the palace healers, learning to properly control and direct her Luminara gifts. And she started a program to search for any other descendants of the Luminara line, offering them protection and training before they could be exploited. But the best parts of her new life were the quiet moments with Valerian, waking up in his arms in their shared chambers, walking through the gardens at midnight under the stars, sitting beside him during court sessions, and offering counsel through the bond when he needed it. 6 months after their wedding, Valerian announced to the court that he was stepping back from some of his more demanding duties. He appointed Cassian as regent to handle day-to-day governance, while he himself would focus on broader strategic matters and, as he put it, spending time with my wife, who I have neglected shamefully in favor of politics. The court understood. A vampire king with a true resonance bond was expected to prioritize that relationship, to nurture it and let it deepen. It was seen as a strength, not a weakness, to have such a powerful connection. Lily and Valerian began to travel, visiting other vampire courts and human cities, building bridges between the two worlds. Lily even returned to her old hospital a few times, though she could no longer work there in any official capacity. She donated money instead, funding research and equipment, and occasionally used her healing powers to help patients the regular doctors couldn't save. Her old life felt like a dream now, something that had happened to a different person. She was happy in ways she'd never imagined possible, fulfilled by her work, deeply in love with her husband, and confident in her place in this strange new world. One night, nearly a year after that midnight when she'd first tended Valerian's battle scars, they stood together in the garden courtyard. The fountains sparkled around them, and the magical stars overhead gleamed like diamonds. "Do you ever regret it?" Valerian asked softly, echoing the question she'd once asked him. "The life you left behind?" Lily thought about it seriously before answering. "I miss some things, my friends, though I still see them sometimes. The simplicity of my old routine. But regret? No. This life with you is more than I ever dreamed of having. I'm helping people on a scale I never could have as just a nurse. I'm part of something bigger than myself, and I'm loved by someone who sees all of me and cherishes every part. She turned to face him, cupping his pale cheek with her hand. Through the bond, she felt his love wash over her like a wave, constant, deep, unwavering. I was lost before I met you, Valerian. I just didn't know it. You showed me who I really am, what I'm capable of. You gave me a purpose and a partnership that makes me stronger. How could I regret that? Valerian pulled her close, resting his chin on top of her head. I was hollow before you, he confessed. I had power and responsibility, but no joy. No one to truly share my existence with. You filled a void I had learned to ignore, and now I cannot imagine my life without you in it. They stood there together as the hours passed, two beings from different worlds who had found in each other exactly what they needed. The bond between them hummed with contentment, with love, with the promise of countless nights like this one still to come. Lily had been forced to tend his battle scars at midnight, had gasped when the Vampire King first held her wrist. That single moment had changed the entire trajectory of her existence. And standing in Valerian's arms, feeling his heartbeat slow and steady against her cheek, feeling the perfect harmony of their joined souls, Lily knew she would make the same choice again in a heartbeat. This was where she belonged. This was home. This was love in its truest, deepest form, a bond that transcended species and circumstance, that had been forged in danger and sealed with trust. And this was her happily ever after, not an ending but a beginning. A life stretching out before her full of possibility, adventure, and a love that would last as long as her human years and echo in Valerian's immortal heart for centuries after. Forever, she whispered against his chest. Forever, Valerian agreed, and kissed the top of her head. In the vampire court beneath the city, in a palace of stone and magic and ancient power, a human woman and a vampire king stood together as equals. Their story had begun with fear and blood and forced proximity, but it had become something beautiful, something worth fighting for, something that would change both their worlds for the better. And as the magical stars wheeled overhead and the fountains sang their eternal song, Lily and Valerian held each other close, their bond shining bright enough to light up the darkness, proving that sometimes the most powerful magic of all is simply love freely given and gratefully received. Their tale was complete, their threads all woven together into a tapestry of romance and danger, of healing and growth, of two souls finding each other against impossible odds and choosing again and again to fight for their love. The Vampire King and his Luminara bride, bound by resonance and choice, facing whatever came next together, not as captor and captive, not as ruler and subject, but as partners, as equals, as two halves of one perfect whole. And they lived in the way that the best love stories promise, in happiness and devotion for all the days of Lily's life, and in Valerian's memories and undying love for all the centuries after. Their bond, once fully formed, never faded. It remained a beacon of hope for other vampires seeking their own resonances, proof that true connection could transcend every boundary and overcome every obstacle. The Crimson Court was never rebuilt. With Lily actively seeking out and protecting other Luminara descendants, the threat of blood weapons disappeared. Peace settled over the vampire world, a peace maintained by Valerian's wise rule and Lily's diplomatic efforts. Together, they ushered in a new era of cooperation between humans and vampires, one where both species benefited from mutual understanding and respect. Years later, when Lily's hair began to show silver threads and fine lines appeared around her eyes, Valerian loved her no less. If anything, he cherished her more, knowing that their time together was precious precisely because it was limited. He commissioned portraits of her at every stage of her life, wanting to remember her exactly as she was in each moment. They discussed the possibility of turning her, of making her vampires so they could have eternity together, but Lily ultimately decided against it. I want to live my human life fully, she told him. And when my time comes, you'll carry our love forward. You'll remember me, and through your memories, I'll live forever in a different way. Valerian accepted her choice, though it pained him. He would have given anything for more time with her, but he respected her autonomy too much to push. Instead, he made sure every day they had together counted, that she knew how precious she was to him. On Lily's 60th birthday, surrounded by friends from both the human and vampire worlds, Valerian presented her with a gift, a book he had written himself, chronicling their story from his perspective. Every moment he'd watched her before they met, every emotion he'd felt when she'd tended his wounds that first midnight, every day of their life together. It was a testament to their love, written in his elegant hand, bound in leather tooled with both their initials. So that you can see yourself as I see you, he said as she cried over the pages. So you know how profoundly you changed my existence. So that you understand you are and always will be the greatest gift I have ever received. Lily lived to be 87, her mind sharp and her heart full until the very end. She passed peacefully in her sleep, with Valerian holding her hand, their bond carrying her love to him even as her breath faded. The pain of losing her nearly destroyed him, but he honored her memory by continuing the work they had started together. He ruled with wisdom and compassion, always asking himself what Lily would have done, what counsel she would have offered. And he never took another consort. For Valerian there could only ever be one resonance, one true love. Lily had been his heart, and though she was gone, the bond between them remained a part of him. He felt it still, a warm echo of what they had shared, a reminder that he had been blessed beyond measure to have loved and been loved by such an extraordinary woman. Centuries after Lily's death, vampires still told their story. The tale of the human nurse and the vampire king, brought together by fate and bound by a love that transcended every obstacle. It became legend, a romance whispered about in vampire courts around the world, a reminder that true connection could be found in the most unexpected places, and that love, when real and deep and freely given, could change everything. And in Valerian's private chambers, hanging above the fireplace where he could see it every day, was a portrait of Lily as she'd been on their wedding night, beautiful and radiant and smiling with a joy that lit up her entire face. Beneath it, in Valerian's precise handwriting, was a single line: "Forever in my heart, eternal in my soul, my beloved Lily, you were and remain everything." It was as an ending, yes, but also a celebration. A love story that had been complete and perfect in its time, that had changed both their worlds for the better, and that would echo through eternity as proof that sometimes, when you're forced to tend battle scars at midnight and a vampire king holds your wrist, you might just find that you've been waiting your whole life for exactly that moment. The moment when everything changes. The moment when you find your home. The moment when true love begins. And for Lily Grayson and Valerian Draekor, that single midnight moment had been the beginning of everything that mattered. A romance forged in danger, deepened through trust, and sealed with a bond that not even death could truly break. It was the kind of love that made eternity meaningful, that gave purpose to immortality, that proved the greatest magic of all was simply two souls recognizing each other and choosing every single day to stay. Their story was complete, their love was eternal, and in the vampire world beneath the city, in the palace where it all began, the memory of what they had shared continued to inspire hope in every being who heard their tale. Hope that love could find anyone, anywhere. Hope that connections forged in the darkest moments could become the brightest lights. Hope that sometimes the most impossible circumstances lead to the most perfect endings. And that, truly, was everything.